wonder why we call it WEOW. So welcome, my name is Michelle, and we are certainly glad you have come to join us this evening. I want to give you just a couple pieces of information. There are bathrooms right outside these doors to the left. That's a really important piece of information for a group of women. And I'm trying to think of what else. We will have a break in a bit, and we'll have food and all that good stuff. And we would love for you to rise and join us in singing.
open our hearts and our minds so that we can feel your love. It is in your great name that we pray. Amen.
Tonight, I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker to you this evening. She's a pastor at St. Paul United Methodist Church in St. Joseph, Missouri. And she's come to us tonight to talk about the beauty and brokenness. Please help me welcome Reverend Amanda Ross.
Good evening. Do I got to sing? Oh, I got it turned on. All right. Well, before we get too far, really quick, does anybody have a Kleenex? I got a Kleenex. Can I? Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. I always get a little nose run as soon as I walk up here. But as you've just been told, that we are here tonight to talk about and understand a little bit better the beauty in brokenness. And I'd like to begin to think about what our culture and our society is feeding us right now as women, which is a very polarized it means to be a human being. And this goes for men and for women. There's extremes of masculinity and extremes of femininity, and the men can have their own night, so we'll leave the men extremes for them. But we're going to talk about women. And what our culture is feeding us right now are these two images, I think, that come up the most, at least for me in my life, is the one of the superwoman. You know, and with the Wonder Woman series coming out now, we kind of all know about this brave woman that can fight everything. When we think of the superwoman, this is the super wife with a great career, taking care of the kids, and she gets everything done in a day, and her hair is perfect at the end of the night. We have that image being fed to us daily. But then at the same time, we have a whole other extreme that's offered to us, which is the woman that doesn't give a flying because why should I care? The world's asking so much of me, and I just, it's everything. And so instead, you then have the woman in the sweatpants, torn up shirt, hair all crazy, and she's the image we're also offered. And yet, here we are talking about what it means as a Christian, women gathered here, what does it mean to be a full, whole human being? Because with this superwoman and with this I don't care attitude offered to us, where do we go in the in-between? Because what's happening is both of these models that are given to us are derived from the same problem. And now I'm going to go a little Brene Brown on you, because I just love her. And it all comes out of a place called perfectionism. Has anybody here heard perfectionism? Yeah, we got it. A few Brene Browners in here too? Yeah, I read her books like this. Yeah. So we have perfectionism. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not perfect and I'm not trying to be perfect, whatever. And you might say, well, how do both of those women play into perfectionism? Because what it is, though, as Brene Brown tells us, is perfectionism is the act or the trying to be beyond judgment. Perfectionism comes as a way to avoid being judged by others. The superwoman tries to be beyond judgment because she's done everything right. It's perfect. The kids' faces are washed, their clothes are pressed, they've gotten to school with their homework, and everything is perfect. And she's trying to avoid judgment so that people won't go, oh, she's so lazy. But then that's where the other side of the model comes into being. Because you have the lazy attitude that kind of comes across, like, I don't care, that doesn't bother me. Because we have to put that up to prevent judgment too. Because, like, your judgment's going to come out at me and bounce off of me and back to you. We get this attitude, and it's trying to avoid judgment. We're here struggling in a world that has polarized us to prevent us from being wholly human and experiencing our emotions that are a gift from God. And that's hard for us to understand sometimes, that it's a gift from God. But let's look at how perfect affects us in multiple areas of our lives. Now, when you ask a pastor to get up and speak to you all, that means you get a little nerdiness in here. And so I love the study of words. And that means I like to know what they mean and what their nuances are. And perfect in today's society is used all the time, and even we use it wrong at times, or we blend its meaning. Because perfect is one of those fun words that actually has Latin and Greek and even Hebrew undertones to it. And depending on how you use it, you're leaning one way or the other. So the first way, just real quickly, in Hebrew, when you hear perfect, When God made something perfect, it means that it was whole. It was whole. It's complete in the way God wanted it to be. Well, then you come out and you then have the Latin understanding of perfect. And this is an ideal without flaws. And it is static. It doesn't change because it is perfect, just as it is. And really, it's because it's so perfect, you can never attain it. But it's still that ideal that we're always like aiming for and struggling for. And then, on the other hand, you have the Greek understanding of perfect, which means that once you get to a certain understanding, comprehension, and competency in a certain area, you will have another revelation that opens your mind to a whole other level, and then you'll get to open up and learn new things, and you'll grow in perfection again until you hit another level of understanding and competency, and another revelation will hit you, and it's a process. Perfection is a process. And often, though, we get stuck in the Latin, perfect, in our world of striving to be perfect women. And it's not just trying to be the supermodel perfect. We just like to be perfect sometimes, I think, for ourselves. But I don't know if anybody else gets trapped into this, because I know I do occasionally. There are the times where I decide I am back to superwoman status. And there I am, I'm doing my makeup again, I'm feeling confident to put on my high heels again, I'm getting all jazzed up to go out in the world. And as soon as I finally get myself ready, and my nails are painted, my lipstick's on, the season changes, and I'm no longer perfect. I am like 3 years behind where I should be. And what happens is this perfection that society offers us changes constantly. This beauty that we are supposed to exude is constantly changing by the time we're even able to get there. And so we get frustrated and exhausted, and then we're like, I don't care anymore. I'm just wearing my sweatpants and t-shirt, and I want everybody else to just get out of my face about it. And then we just have the cycle again, and we get stuck in this cycle of the two extremes. But this has got me thinking about, what about the Greek, the process, and the Hebrew of God's wholeness? And I recall that in the beginning, God created. And when God created, what did God say about what was created? Anybody? It is good. As I talk to my youth group, I ask them to say, it's good. So come on, real quick, it's good. Okay, I wasn't so good. 1, 2, 3. It's good. Oh, yeah. Creation was good when God created. But sometimes we overlook a very little piece of that scripture, because as we go down to the 6th day, and that's when the animals get created and these human beings get created. In chapter 1, humanity is created at the same time. All of humanity is created at the same time. And what does God call human beings? Anybody? Good, you're like, she's going to trick me on this one. I'm not going to speak up. It actually says that we were created very good. In the Common English Bible, it says supremely good. When human beings were created, we got an extra good added to us. That's what God did. And that very good is God's perfection of wholeness. Wow, that's pretty amazing. But you know what? When I was raised in church, I also got told that by chapter 3, sin sin had entered the world and we had messed it all up because sin had entered the world. Well, I was told this. I figured now that I'm a pastor, I should actually read it to make sure that it's there. Do you want to know something? Sin did not enter into God's vocabulary in chapter 3 of Genesis. When the serpent came and convinced or tricked Eve into biting into a piece of fruit, it didn't say sin entered the world. When Eve went and convinced or tricked Adam into having a piece of that fruit, sin didn't enter into the world. When God came down and found them in the garden and they kind of started their little game, it doesn't say that sin entered the world. Sin entered the world when Cain and Abel were getting their bad behaviors going. So, what's going on in chapter 3 of Genesis? So sin doesn't really enter in, but what enters in is an awareness of brokenness. Now I'm going to challenge us a little bit here. An awareness of brokenness. Because we often say sin is what breaks us, but if sin hasn't entered into the world yet, into the vocabulary, something else is happening in the relationship of Adam and Eve and God. My challenge is that God created us already broken, already with flaws. We already had a clumsiness to us. We already didn't always have the right things to say. Maybe our bodies were already at times getting sick. Because what God understands within our relationship, that wholeness is about a relationship with God. And if we didn't need God in the first place, then we would have been not broken. But we need God. So in order for that relationship to be sustainable in the very beginning, we were already broken. We were created in pieces. Every single one of us, the moment we're born, we try to convince ourselves, oh, this baby is perfect. This baby is going to be perfect. But within one night of a screaming a child, you kind of start to realize this thing is already broken. It's already broken. And we're like shocked at this. But maybe it's because our understanding of what God created has been messed up over time. Because God actually created us in pieces. But remember what God said? You're very good. You're very good within your weaknesses. You're very good in your insecurities. You're very good in that you need one another to help one another. We were meant to be broken so that we would depend on God and that we would depend on each other to get the pieces of our lives back together. You see, when Adam and Eve ate of that fruit, what entered into the world was blame and shame. That's what entered the world. Because all of a sudden, it was like, oh, it wasn't me, the snake made me do that. It wasn't me, the woman made me do that. And this thing called embarrassment all of a sudden entered into the world. Woo, I better cover up. Get me some fig leaves right now. As I was informed, though, by some kids, fig leaves are very itchy to wear. So it makes me wonder about that in a whole other way. Look, be aware of that. If you ever try fig leaves, they're itchy. But what happened was that this insecurity was what broke the relationship with God. As soon as God came to walk with Adam and Eve, they were no longer showing their brokenness to God. They were saying, oh God, don't look at us. Let us go hide. We're going to go try to figure out how to fix ourselves by ourselves and then come back. And yet God's like, I already knew what you looked like. I already knew all your flaws. I knew you were broken. And it was us who walked away. How often do we find ourselves walking away from God on a daily basis because we don't want God to see that we don't have our lives figured out? We're not really sure what they want from our jobs. We're just kind of making do. And there's some of us who have our good old checklists and our priorities together, and we're like, look, everybody, I'm getting my checklist. My Post-its are all done. I'm good. And then you have that other person that goes, I'm just going to watch YouTube videos for a while because I don't care. We get stuck in these extremes again because we're avoiding that we're broken. And then we find ourselves in these cycles over and over again. And what I want to remind you of tonight in this first session is that your brokenness is beautiful. Your brokenness is very good. And God wants you to be open. God wants you to be available to that relationship so that God can be a part of your life. We are dependent on God to make us whole. Yet at the same time, we were already created whole and perfect. I'm going to jump ahead if I don't look at my notes here because I'm not perfect. So there is the perfect that means that we are without flaw. And it's the perfect that frustrates us time and time again. But there is the perfect that helps us understand God's love deeper and greater. And tonight we're going to take that journey of understanding God's grace that surrounds us and walks with us and travels with us as we are broken, because it's beautiful. And I'm excited tonight that your project, your craft project, I hope will be something to remind you of your brokenness and God's love for you in that. We have beautiful pieces of fabric for you all to get to work with, you know. Oh, I love cloth. I am a sewer. My mom can tell you I used to sew my clothes all the time, so I'm not fibbing up here. I wanted to be a fashion designer, and then I got distracted. So I love cloth, but do you know what's one of the hardest things to do with a beautiful piece of cloth? It's always that first tear, that first rip. What comes out of it. And tonight you're going to have some ripped cloth, broken. It's just the scraps that are left. But what's amazing is what God can do with the scraps, with the brokenness of us. Because even though, let's see, I got it against the bias here. Well, I'm not perfect. Yeah, even my jiu-jitsu muscles aren't going to work here. There we go. So within this, as you do your projects tonight, I hope you don't go into superwoman mode or I don't care, I don't like this project mode. Because what you're going to see is in your project that there's going to be flaws. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly the way you wanted it. You're going to burn yourself with a hot glue gun, probably, and walk away with some scars. But it's a reminder that in the flaws, in the mess-ups, is where God can do some of the best work in our lives. And so as you mingle among yourselves and talk and eat and do your craft, stop trying to be perfect tonight. And if you don't know what to say to a stranger, get over it. It's okay. We are here as beautiful women who are broken. And it's already out on the table. I've already broken that wall. We all know it. Every single one of us is broken and don't have it figured out. But it's okay to share in here. It's safe to just be broken, be yourself, and enjoy your evening until we come back again. Amen.
Looking at me. So we are going to, we're a few minutes early, that's why the panic happened. It's all good, because with Amanda, it's how the Spirit moves her. Anyway, Amanda went to, did you already plug in the hot glue guns? Oh, she's got an assistant plugging in the hot glue guns because we want those to be warmed up for you. So we're going to be taking our break, and it's about 30 minutes. It'll be about 35 minutes. There's a lot of you. But we have some awesome catered treats from Hy-Vee for you. And we also have bathrooms if you need a bathroom break. And then Amanda is going to come, another Amanda, is going to come and explain the craft that you have available to make tonight. And I know there are sometimes people who are like, well, I don't need one more thing, but maybe you could make it and give it to someone else who you might think would enjoy it. So.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and we have an awesome craft for you guys tonight. We're taking these torn pieces of fabric and we're going to turn them into a beautiful cross. So you have an option of, there's a whitewashed wood and a stained wood. There's all different types of fabric, so hopefully you'll find something that appeals to you, and then a little rosette. And if this looks daunting, it's not. It's just like tying a ribbon around a package. And if you don't know how to do that, when you leave tonight, you will have a new skill. So congratulations. So all you do is you take your fabric, you lay it behind the wood, you bring it to the front, you crisscross it, wrap it around the sides, 2 dabs of glue on the back, and then glue your rosette of choice on the front, and you are done. So it's very easy. We have taken all of the prep out of it. All you have to do is show up, and you can tell people you did all of this. When people ask, you give this as gifts, you be like, I stained this, I tore fabric, I made this rosette. Yeah, so, and then at the ends of the table, we have a couple pieces, or we have masking tape and pens, so if you want to put your name on the back in case you set it down or whatnot, that way you can make sure that you get yours back. A word of caution, we do have 3 long extension cords running to the table, and then there are a lot of glue guns plugged in, so when you sit down, just sit carefully and make sure you're not tangled up when you stand up. And the glue guns are very hot. You will burn yourselves. Just you've been warned. So yeah, so eat and then craft, craft and then eat. This shouldn't take long, so we can get you all through. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy.
We're going to get back about 7:45.
We will come back at 7:45.